All right, so welcome to our July HMIS users meeting for the Balance of State COC. Happy to be here with you today. My name is Andrea Carey. I use pronouns she, her, and representing the data center for you today. We have a pretty tight short agenda for us today, so just a couple things we want to review. First up, we want to check in on our assessment updates that were active as of July 1st, and want to make sure that that's clear for you, that transition is going okay, see if you have any questions. And then we want to dig in a little bit to the data quality plan and making sure that we're prepared for our implementation of this kind of new phase of the data quality plan for our HMIS site. And we'll go through and define a couple terms, make sure we're all using the same language for the same thing. We also want to check in on some deadlines and events coming up in the HMIS calendar and what's next. Definitely happy to demo or troubleshoot anything also towards the end there. But please definitely chat or unmute yourself for questions throughout today's meeting. Okay, so in terms of our system updates, we had a few different changes coming online for July 1st. The first one is removing the COVID-19 questions from the client profile tab. Now, in part, we were removing this because folks weren't using this as much as 14 months ago at the kind of peak of the pandemic. So hopefully this hasn't disrupted anything, but please let us know if this is disrupting your workflow at all. We just took those off of the client profile in Service Point, and then also removed them from the supplemental paper option. So those have been removed. We're in a new phase to the pandemic, and our DHHS Health and Human Services have been tracking vaccinations and symptoms and testing in some more effective ways than our own data can do. So we want to rely on that. We don't want to duplicate anything that already exists, right? So those have been removed. Just as a reminder, these kind of went through the gambit. We initially introduced these when testing wasn't as widely available, so there's a lot of focus on symptoms and isolation. But again, those are now removed from your client profile tab. Second update is the county of residence and city of residence questions being removed. So data, again, wasn't being requested as much, and this was also being a little bit, it was being confused with MC County of Service, which is an essential data element for our system, in particular our regional data for HMIS. And so those two questions have been removed from the intake, from the project start form. If you are using county of residence or city of residence, please let us know. There were a couple projects with custom requirements, such as this one in Durham, that needed to keep that. So we want to help you troubleshoot the impact, but didn't want to require it for all in order to just extend that interview. You have enough to ask folks about. So hopefully that will support a more concise, clear, and effective intake process for you. I've got a question in the chat about intake in general, and the question is there a written script for the HMIS assessment for an interviewer to use? And there is not. We do have a script for the privacy conversation side, but in terms of actually going through the questions, no, there's not a script. I would say that if there's particular questions that are more difficult to navigate than others, we've developed guidance for disabling condition in the past, and we could work together for troubleshooting questions that are particularly tricky. But we know that clients have really different needs in terms of that communication, so that hasn't been created. Okay, so just a reminder of what these questions looked like. County of residence was just that drop down, but the city of residence was kind of tricky. It was a lookup, not tricky, cumbersome. It was a lookup feature where you had to search for the specific city or town. So we've removed that. Awesome. There was a slight change on the paper forms where previously we had referred to date of data collection, and we changed that to date of project start for the intake and project update as well. So just to clarify that, that date should really align with the definition of a project start date. In particular, street outreach has such a kind of unique and particular definition for that one to make sure that the paper forms were reflective. All right. Any other questions so far? Okay, and then the larger change, I think the most significant change, was adding current living situation to our standard emergency shelter and transitional housing projects. And so this is to support coordinated entry in HMIS, allowing a more accurate look at a client's living situation and really tracking the difference between a prior living situation and a current living situation. So we have kind of 3 questions that address where the client's staying. There's the prior living situation at project start, current living situation at occurrence, so it can occur at multiple times through the journey, and exit destination. And so to make sure that those are kind of all lining up and we get that accuracy, we are added current living situation, and this is going to do just a huge amount to reduce the burden on our coordinated entry projects, just to confirm information that shelters and transitional housing projects already know, right? If you're serving a client in emergency shelter, then you know their current living situation is emergency shelter, right? So just a couple clicks there to confirm that is going to be really helpful for community by name list and case conferencing and just management of coordinated entry. Current living situation was already on and required for street outreach, coordinated entry, and some SSO projects. This is what it looks like in HMIS. So you now see this additional sub-assessment and how you add or confirm the client's living situation for shelter or transitional housing is clicking that add button and selecting it from the drop down for living situation. Just really a couple clicks, confirm the date is the same, across the board. Start date is the same as end date is the same as information date, just to show it's a snapshot in time. And you can definitely brush up on your skills with current living situation using this link. Let me see if I can drop that in the chat here. I've got it set up, this link, so that it starts right where current living situation begins. So it's a little bit more pinpointed than if you go to the entire. You can always find this on the training website on our ntceh.org. /HMIS/training, but just to make sure you can hit that now. Here's that link. All right, and then to confirm when this applies for emergency shelter and transitional housing projects, here are the expectations, kind of all in one place. So we've given you the reasoning for how to add and why to add current living situations, but this is where it can possibly be included. So we want you to include current living situation for all new data entry, meaning clients that are new and having a new project start, or maybe they were current clients as of July 1st and you're just now adding their coordinated entry assessment or coordinated entry event. And so you want to you'll want to confirm the current living situation when either you conducted the ISPDAT, that assessment, or coordinated entry event when you're referring a client. So if you are doing data entry for CE assessment or CE event, also confirm the current living situation. And then if there's an exit coming up too, and the destination is known, confirm the current living situation there as well. All right, with this data entry beginning now, we're going to kind of build up that that history and that data. And as of October 1st, we're going to have at least one current living situation confirmed for all clients in shelter and transitional housing. This is important for data standards and for our community's CE grant. All right, I know we've gotten a couple questions about this in help desk, so we wanted to maybe take a moment and clarify when current living situation applies. Do folks have additional questions or any concerns around this? You want to unmute and ask your question or chat it up. All right, not hearing anything. Okay, let's just keep going then, and if folks want, I'm happy to review kind of what the current living situation looks like in the training site at the end. I know it's not applying to everyone on the call, so I'll hold off now if there's no questions. But I'll do just a little demo so you can see that in action. Okay, well let's think about kind of our training portion today, or how can we help section, and talk about the upcoming data quality management plan. So this is a lot of information, but wanted to make sure that our reasoning and our explanation is super clear. So we are working on kind of refreshing the data quality plan because high quality data is so essential for understanding our clients' needs, how the system is working, and really where improvements are needed. Our COC utilizes data to inform program and policies, and also performance, right, and system gaps analysis. So the in particular, performance is coming up. We've got the annual state ESG application occurring kind of now. NOFA is probably right around the corner for COC funding. We know that poor data quality can result in less funding and impact the entire system. So we really want to work together and support across the system high data quality, so we can bolster that funding and make sure you're able to continue to do the important work on the ground, actually with clients. High data quality can also really illustrate the needs of our neighbors and the system. So what are the obstacles that people experiencing homelessness are facing? Everything from difficulty maintaining income, disabling conditions, some of those things, and the essential work that you are providing for clients. All of the enrollment information, demographics, household structure, this is all really important to illustrating how you are serving folks. All right, so we are excited about continuing to increase our quality for data in HMIS. And we do want to note here that all HMIS participating agencies, regardless of funding, are required and expected to maintain their data. So this is for us all. In terms of what the transition is here, we've been developing a plan for year-round check-ins so that it's not just about federal reporting seasons. I've got this screenshot here. It's just a kind of visualization of the number of help desk tickets that we utilize per month. And you can see there's a couple really big kind of curves here. And those are reflective of when the LSA in particular was occurring, both in 2019 and 2020. And then there's also kind of a bump around the pit hick and the caper. I think that's February 2019. It was a little late that year. So there's a lot of activity that happens around federal reporting season, and this is it's a little bit more work on our side, but we know it's really a lot of work for you too, and we'd like to really smooth this curve out, make the expectations and activities around data correction not so burdensome on a few months a year. So by checking this in several times a year, right, or more than just the federal reporting season, we can make this easier for corrections for you. We really are trying to approach this in a constructive manner. This is about how we can support agencies for better data quality. So those are kind of the key aspects for how we're developing this plan. And apologies, I also want to mention that your feedback is super important. We have created a draft to get us started, right? To synthesize some of the data standards and reporting information that we know, but we really want to hear from you. Will this work for different project types? And so we have a survey. Oh, excuse me. Why that? There we go. So we have a survey that you can, submit anytime to submit your feedback. And we also are doing a focus group. So here is the survey link in case you haven't seen that. And then the focus group is going to be on July 22nd at 1 p.m. We're really hoping that we can get some coverage across project types so that we have some good feedback and we can catch anything that is not going to work. So you can register there and put that link in the chat. All right, any questions about how we're putting this together? Okay, so let's talk about what the plan actually is. It includes two main sections: the data quality elements and benchmark, and data quality monitoring and reporting. So the elements and benchmarks, that's just considering what are we checking and what are the limits on error rates for those questions, those data elements. And what we've done is we've identified some specific questions or different thresholds that are needed for different project types. So we'll go over that in just a moment. On the other side of the plan is the reporting side. So we are going to be running reports regularly and send them to agencies. So we'll send you data quality reports for each project and identifying the places where there are maybe concerns, red flags, just straight up errors, and places to improve data quality and meet the benchmarks. Then we want to support you in answering any questions or concerns, and should you need help with corrections, you can also reach out to the data center for that. And then these results, and especially the trends, are going to be shared with our C2C lead agencies. All right, and just the image here is just a reminder that this is definitely a collaborative process, right? We want to support you by running these reports and reviewing them with that kind of annotation, but we really also need your help in reviewing and correcting those, and we'll be working with the COC leads as well moving forward. Okay, so your role in all of this is to be the experts that you are. We rely on you to know what is really happening on the ground, what is accurate, and so we definitely need your help, your knowledge, and experience to have higher data quality. I'm going to plug this a couple times, definitely want to ask you to engage with feedback. We have the current feedback links that I put in the chat, but we also are going to come back to our groups, especially the focus group, in the fall and see how has it gone. So we do want to do a little bit of review of the draft and then see after a couple months, how's it going? Are there any changes that need to be made? We really want to ask you to be responsive to the data center when we're sending these out. That's really important for making sure we can support you in possible corrections. And please ask for help when you need it. We want to be here for you, but it's hard if we don't know that you need that assistance. So please continue to ask for help when needed. All right. So we're going to keep diving in a little deeper at a time, and want to take a moment to consider what is data quality, how are we measuring this in our data quality plan. So data quality is really referring to reliability and validity of client level data entered into HMIS. This is to help us reflect the extent to which the system is real life, is really reflecting that agency and client experiences. We understand that no data entry system can't have 100% perfect, absolute data quality, but we are going to do our best to get as close as possible. And so the ways to consider data quality are completeness, accuracy, timeliness, and consistency. We're going to focus in this phase of the data quality plan, this version, on completeness and timeliness, but we'll have a few different things to identify around accuracy and consistency. So we'll give you a heads up or check in around, is this right? But there's not actually kind of a right or wrong answer. It's just, is it accurate or not? For completeness, this is really measuring if data is known and recorded in HMIS. So obviously all data entered should be complete. We want to get to 100% complete whenever possible. But we do understand that sometimes other things happen. You have an intake that's interrupted and a client disappears. A client doesn't know or refuses to answer a particular question. So there is built-in kind of leeway and a cushion in case of those circumstances. Completeness is really allowing us to get the entire picture of a client situation. With big holes missing, then we can miss other aspects about the client's experience. If you don't have health insurance, disabling condition, then we might not know about some of the either income opportunities for disabling condition or other obstacles that a client is facing. If we're missing things like, crucial things to a client's identification, date of birth, parts of the social, then it can be hard to identify other times that they've interacted with the system and really confirm that, if they've used our system, homeless services system before, what's that experience and history of homelessness. So we really, we know that on kind of a system level, missing or partial data can disrupt our coordination, but it can also really disrupt it on the client level for coordinating each client's services. So completeness is a really key aspect of data quality. So let's go through the places where it isn't complete. The most common responses that are not complete are called client doesn't know, client refused, or data not collected. And now all of these are considered null or unknown. If a client doesn't know some information or a response to a question, that's okay, right? They have the right to know or not know their information. However, that doesn't inform any service coordination, any needs, any gaps analysis, doesn't inform any of those patterns. And so it is still considered a null value or incomplete response. I also want to point out that data not collected in particular, this is referring to when a project does not ask a client a question. So there's no chance, there's no opportunity for a client to respond to that question. So you really only want to use data not collected when the question was accidentally skipped. Otherwise, it should be either an accurate, complete response, client doesn't know, or client refused. And then when we refer to missing in the plan, that's looking at blanks or empty responses, as opposed to data not collected. So those are the different options there. Any questions about why some of the client doesn't know, client refused is still considered incomplete? Okay. Timeliness. Let's talk about timeliness too. So timeliness is the time between data collection from a client and to data entry. We really want to minimize the lag time so that data is available, up to date, and accurate whenever it's needed. What social sciences services systems have found over time is that the sooner data is entered into the database, the more likely that data will be correct. So if we think about this in terms of HMIS data, if you're doing an intake with a client and take that client's information down on, say, a paper form, and then there's someone else that enters the data into the system, maybe they can't read some of our writing, right? We're going fast, and maybe something about that isn't legible, or they misinterpret it. And it takes time to then decipher that. They have to go back to the person who collected the information, or maybe you're trying to track down the client. Who knows if the client is still around, depending on your project type. So the faster that we get it into HMIS, the more accurate will be the sooner we can either catch up with anyone who did collect the data or the client themselves, or just, you know, figure out something that was not quite right and track down the answer. In HMIS, timeliness is measured from at the project start and the project exit. So there is a timeliness rating for project start and a timeliness rating for project exit. Once a start or an exit is created, the timeliness can't be changed. So it's really measuring the time between data collection and data entry when you first create that project start. I think for project start, this is kind of the most significant. If you find out later that there was something inaccurate in a project start in an intake interview, and you go to fix that, the timeliness won't be impacted by that. So it is really about the initial time entering that data. Our goal is same-day data entry, and that can be scary, right? So we are allowing up to 6 days, but HUD's goal is really as soon as possible, and they have you know, been signaling over time that they're measuring this, but and asking us to get that closer and closer to real-time data entry. Okay, so let's think through timeliness just a little bit. If an intake with a client takes place on a Monday, and our project start is recorded in HMIS on Wednesday, the timeliness is measured as 2 days. And in our HMIS APR categories, this is going to look like 1 to 3 days as a range. So you don't get kind of credit for the 2 days. It's 1 to 3 days there. All right. Another example, if a client identifies a disabling condition that maybe they didn't disclose at intake, the information could be corrected in the project start on Friday, but your timeliness would still be recorded as 2 days. Because when you created that project start, that was 2 days after the data collection. All right, does that make sense? Do folks have questions about timeliness? This is a little bit different than how we've engaged with timeliness in the past. We've gotten some reporting clarified. I want to make sure this is clear. All right. Moving forward then. So what are the benchmarks? The benchmarks were we considered HMIS data standards and HUD reporting requirements for drafting these benchmarks. We do have some different benchmarks for different project types because different project types have different workflows, right? Street outreach, emergency shelter, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, permanent supported housing, and homeless prevention projects are included in our benchmarks. So you'll notice CE is not. And that's because we're waiting on our vendor's release of the CE APR and just how that's going to work in HMIS. So CE will be included, but is not right now. And these benchmarks are going to review mostly relying on the COC APR report and being run for the fiscal year to date. So in August, we'll run those reports from October 2020 through July 2021. This is the federal fiscal year. And what this allows us to do is see the most recent data, but make sure that folks are included from the whole fiscal year, which is how HUD is looking at our data. That's how we're submitting it. All right, so in case you haven't seen this in the survey, the baseline benchmark is 5% or lower for error rates, and that means at least 95% complete. So that is the baseline for all of the standard data elements and project types. Now there are a few kind of places where it's not 5%, so let's go over that. For Social Security number, that's been bumped up to have a little bit more cushion to 10%. That is a really important data element, but it can take a little bit longer to get it into the system because of the security protocols in our service point. Housing assessment at exit, which is a homeless prevention project question. So this is asking, did the client move to a new location? Do they have a subsidy for their new housing solution? That question is set at 10%, so there's up to 10% error rate there. And exit destination has a range of 5 to 15%. So for street outreach and shelters, that limit is 15%. For rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing, 10%, and then transitional housing and homeless prevention at 5%. All right, any questions, comments, feedback that you'd like to share now? All right. Cool. Well, I'm glad this is making sense. We can do this. This is either being met in many places or very close. We did use reports through the end of May, I think, in order to look at what was really feasible. And so this is definitely feasible. So congratulations on your current high levels of data entry, and we will keep continuing to make that better. All right, so our timeline for implementation, looking out a few months, is June. The data center was drafting the plan. July, we're trying to get that feedback from you. We've got that survey link and the focus group event next Thursday. Links are in the chat. And August is when we're going to begin. We're going to begin that reporting, reviewing your reports by project, and sending that feedback to you. In November or December, we're going to want to evaluate the progress of the data quality plan, and we'll have an opportunity to receive additional feedback from users and agencies. Okay. All that for the data quality plan. I know that was a lot maybe, but we want to make sure that you're prepped and ready to go when you start receiving those reports next month. Okay, any questions or concerns? Awesome. All right, cool. Well, easy peasy, let's do it. We are gonna go to what's next. What's our calendar look like? Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I have a little note here for myself. Let's make sure that we're clear on this, because data quality is important, and we want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. So, I'm gonna just pause that. And all right, so I'm launching this poll. We've got 3 questions here. You have to answer each one of those questions in order to submit. And so we want to check in and make sure it's really clear what is considered an error, red flag, or missing for completeness. Then number 2, should you fix incomplete data? And number 3, if a client, what is this is an example of timeliness. If we have an intake on a Monday and they get their responses entered Friday, what's that timeliness measured as in the system? So we want to make sure folks are answering this poll now. Take a look at those 3 questions. The first question is multiple select. you can select all that apply for the number 1 question. So you can check all those boxes. The other 2 are single answers only. Okay, we've got about 30% of folks submitted, so we're looking for some more answers here. Okay, thanks for your consideration of these questions. Make sure your data quality plan is going to make sense to you as we look at completeness and timeliness. All right, I'm going to close it in just a few seconds here. Submit if you're going to. And we're closing. Okay, so we are sharing results now. So for number 1, we have a couple things to select here. In terms of which of the following are considered errors, red flags, or missing, there are 4 correct answers. So blank, client doesn't know, client refused, and data not collected are all considered errors, red flags, missing, incomplete. That is not a complete answer. In terms of should you fix incomplete data, yes, you should. If the data is available, if the accurate data is available, you definitely want to fix that. We at the data center are here to help if you have any questions about how to do that. And then our last question is an example of timeliness. And yes, the 4 days is the correct answer. So Monday is the day that the data is collected, when the client actually has that intake. And then what this example says is that the responses are entered on Friday. So we've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 days for the kind of delay for data entry. 4 days is within the benchmark, so just as a heads up. All right, thank you so much for participating in that, and let me know if any questions have come up. I don't see any right now. Do folks want to unmute, or if you would like me to unmute you, I certainly can. All right, let's look at the timeline and wrap up. So for events coming up, the next thing on the docket is the ESG CV CAPER. And so the data center is submitting this on your behalf if you have an ESG CV award, but we are submitting that next week on July 21st. So if you have some data you want to get in there, if you are correcting any data, that does need to be done by July 21st, so it is submitted to HUD. And Congress is really looking at this data. They are very interested in how we're spending this money, and they're definitely paying close attention. So these reports are really important for not only you individually as a grantee, but also kind of our whole system in representing the good work that we do. August 19th is our Balance of State users meeting for August. And then we do want to give you a heads up that in September, we are going to be working on the annual privacy and new data standards trainings and that requirement. All right, and then our kind of next federal reporting season starts in October with the longitudinal system analysis. With our data quality plan beginning in August, we'll get a head start and hopefully make fall that much smoother for you. All right, so as always, you can contact our data center at HMIS at ncceh.org. We are still kind of doing a voicemail exchange with the phone number, but welcome to leave us a message there. All right, I don't see any more questions, but I will hop into, you can stick around if you'd like to see an example of a current living situation. I did want to give us that chance. Oh, let's see, a question came. All right, so if I got a question here about back at home for housing move-in dates. Yes, for back at home, you are going to need to record move-in date in Smartsheet and HMIS as applicable. So housing move-in date isn't available for homeless prevention projects, but that housing assessment at exit is for homeless prevention. So you will want to follow up and make sure that data is complete in HMIS for rapid housing and homeless prevention. Question? Oh, what am I doing? I am not in EBA mode. Hold on. All right, so if you need to go or already are super confident about your current living situation, skills, cool, you can head out, but wanted to show you this in action. Okay, come on. We are not going to do that because that is taking a second. Pause our share real quick. So if I am looking at a client, I'm going to go to their entry exit tab and look at the assessment that they are using. All right, we're going to start our own here. Here, adding our intake for project here. You should be in EBA mode when you do this. However, I'm having some technical difficulties. So for our example, I have selecting that shelter. Oh, excuse me. But there we go. Apologize, y'all. I don't know what is going on with the internet. The storm clouds are not here, so usually that's the reason, but it is just not working. Okay, I'm heading down to current living situation now. Here we go. It's our sub-assessment. Looks like this one is empty. To complete current living situation, you're going to click the Add button. And this is going to get you a pop-up where you can confirm the living situation and then a couple other pieces of information. All right, we made it. So here at the top, you'll see 3 different date fields. I didn't design this, but you are going to just confirm this is a snapshot. We are applying this living situation for today's date. And then you select the current living situation. This dropdown is going to look a lot like your prior living situation dropdown and your destination dropdown. So here, if this is for a shelter, you would select emergency shelter. For transitional housing, that's down here. And so you would just select that and then confirm your project by using this lookup button. So this is kind of a required field from HUD. They want to confirm who is verifying this living situation, who confirms this information. And here you're just going to use a search tool for your project. This is not super well formatted. You can see there's not like the dashes. It's a little bit of a different look for the project name. Just focus on what you need to search for in order to find your project, and you will get there. good. It should be there. If you're able to load a project, then it is operational by definition. If you have any issues with finding your project in this field, please let us know. This really should work. Okay, just for this example, something allied here. All right, and then that's it. So this question, is the client going to have to leave their current living situation in 14 days? That is only applying to, that is not referring to emergency shelter or transitional housing, right? Transitional housing is up to 24 months, and our shelters are not usually having a deadline for that. So we're going to select no, they're not going to have to leave. They might leave, of course, but it's not going to be mandated. It's not the same thing as an eviction notice, right? So we're going to say no, and then you can skip the rest of these questions. These other questions are really for situations that are temporary or permanent, and trying to get some additional information around the history of their housing instability. All right, so we're going to save that. All right, so that is the end of current living situation. Are there any other questions around either current living situation or anything else like HMIS related? All right, I'm not hearing any. So we look forward to checking in with you again August 19th. And with that, I'm going to stop recording.